Hi, I wanted to make this video because I've been thinking, and this time I've been thinking about uncertainty. So the reason I've been thinking about uncertainty is because sometimes I get a bit scared about what's happening in life and what might happen in the future, and it isn't a nice feeling. And it can start to make me feel a bit powerless, like I'm a victim of something that hasn't even happened yet. And I want to be able to move away from that feeling and try to enjoy rather than fear the fact that the future is a bit of a mystery. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about uncertainty and my relationship with it. So I've got a few things that I would like to share, both to remind myself how to keep on top of those feelings and hopefully to help other people too. So if you're also finding that uncertainty can sometimes hold you back from doing things or can keep you awake at night, you might be interested in this. So we can't get rid of uncertainty, so let's see if we can find some ways to help us view it a bit differently and to stop it from holding us back. So uncertainty really means a situation or an outcome that is unknown or unpredictable, which means that we don't know what will happen in the future. We can relate that to various aspects of our lives, such as health, relationships, careers, or even global events. And it can cause feelings of anxiety or hesitation, or if we're lucky, excitement and opportunity. So how do we move away from anxiety and head towards the excitement? So I'm pretty sure that I wasn't too worried about uncertainty when I was younger, and I felt excited about what might happen each day. So what's happened to make uncertainty seem more of a threat than a friend? I suppose a lot of it is to do with having a greater awareness of things that can happen in life, or even things that have happened in life. And also an awareness of how little control we often have over those things. The more life experience that we have, the more likely we are to be aware of some of the bad things that can happen. So really by living more life, we've given ourselves a bigger selection of things to worry about. So maybe that's where the negativity can start creeping in. When we didn't know about those things, whatever they are, we weren't able to worry about them affecting us. I actually wonder how many more things there are that we could be worrying about if only we knew about them. And if you've seen my previous videos, you might know that my husband survived an unexplained cardiac arrest a few years ago. And I think that's a good example of uncertainty because life suddenly felt very uncertain to me. And I thought I'd never be able to feel safe again because nobody could tell me how the future was going to be. It really seemed that for every question we had, we got the answer, "I'm sorry, we just don't know." And it wasn't a very satisfactory answer, but we couldn't do anything about it. So I think that was really the trigger for me to really start looking at my relationship with uncertainty. I knew that I couldn't take away my new awareness of what could happen in life, and I also couldn't get any comfort or reassurance that it wouldn't happen again. So I knew I'd have to take a different approach. So something that I found helpful was reminding myself that a lot of the fun in life would be spoiled if we knew what was going to happen next. And we'd never have the excitement of not knowing. Hello, cat. There were definitely times when I felt that I'd be willing to trade that potential fun and excitement for some certainty, but I don't feel like that now. So the two most impactful things that helped me move forward with that level of uncertainty were to stop myself from predicting doom in the future and to gently introduce some changes to my usual routines in life. So I learned the tip to introduce changes to my routine from a book, and the reasons behind it made sense to me, so I decided to give it a try. So the idea is that having a lot of routine in your life can accidentally make you more uncomfortable with uncertainty. So by consciously making a few changes to your routine, you can gently move away from that. So things like taking a different route to somewhere that you usually go, or going to a different shop to get your groceries, or even just changing the order that you do things in your day. It does sound simple, but really I found it helpful to not always rely on the comfort of my routines, and then I found it easier to do other things that weren't part of my usual routine. So just making those small changes, I think, set me on a better path with my relationship with uncertainty. So I'd say don't underestimate it and give it a try. And the other tip about not predicting doom in the future was also something I got from a book, and I realised straight away that I was guilty of it. Just because something might happen in the future doesn't mean that it will, and you can't make the future any more or less certain just by thinking about it. So if you find yourself predicting bad things for the future, you can be confident that it isn't helpful. So you can be firm with yourself that you're not allowing it. So I think the challenge for this one is really to notice when you're doing it. And I find that gets easier the more you practice. And I've noticed that a lot of my doom predicting tends to start with what if statements. So I tried to notice those. What if I take a trip somewhere and something goes wrong? What if I go for a walk in the country and I get taken ill when I'm in the middle of nowhere? Both of those things are the type of uncertainty worries that can trouble me. But as soon as I notice them, I can put a stop to them. And I've got a statement that I use to replace those thoughts when I notice them. So you may have heard this before, but that statement is, whatever happens, I'll deal with it. And I can't argue with that, so I find it quite helpful. And you're welcome to use it too, if you'd like to. I find it quite powerful because instead of trying not to have uncertainty, it encourages me to trust myself that I'll be able to figure things out no matter what happens. So I think try a different routine and trust yourself that it'll be okay. And I think the other thing that is a good idea is to try and stay away from the news as much as possible. If you want to reduce the number of different things that our brains might try to focus on the uncertainty of. I think we live in a bit of a clickbait era with sensationalised news stories, which really seem designed to cause maximum stress and to keep us coming back for updates. So I decided to step away from watching the news about 5 years ago, and I've never been happier. So I realised that might be a bit controversial because following the news is a part of most people's lives, and might seem a bit irresponsible to not know what's going on. And maybe I am a bit irresponsible, but it feels like the right decision for me. I do sometimes feel a bit embarrassed if I tell people about this, in case they think that I don't care about what's going on in the world and what's happening to other people. But actually, I think I might care a bit too much, so it can all get a bit on top of me. I don't want to hear sad stories every day if I can't do anything to help. So I'm not really going to stress this point too strongly, because I know a lot of people would never give up watching the news. But I think it's worth mentioning that I think a part of the reason that I can smile every day is because I stay away from the news. You know, we're all individuals, and that's the decision I made for me, and I'm comfortable with it on the whole, and have no plans to change it. So maybe just try it for a week and see how you feel. You might be surprised that you actually don't miss it and feel a bit less worried about the future. Because for me personally, I found that my life was getting a bit smaller when I was paying too much attention to the news. I might be afraid of doing something different or taking a trip somewhere I didn't know because of hearing bad stories and feeling that the risks are bigger than they actually are. And I think the reality is that we're far more likely not to be affected by those stories ourselves, but yet we can end up stopping ourselves from doing things just because of the awareness that something might happen. So I find the more that I remove myself from the stories of what might happen, the more likely I am to actually go on my own adventures and not worry about things while I'm there. And I actually had a trip planned earlier this year, and I think if I'd been watching the news, I probably wouldn't have gone. I had some people say to me, are you nervous about taking that trip? And I just answered honestly, no. I didn't know what I had to be nervous about. I had a great time on that trip and nothing bad happened. And again, you know, maybe that's irresponsible of me, but the outcome for me was better because of it. I didn't know what would happen on that trip, and that's what made it more exciting. I hoped that it would be fun, and I trusted myself that whatever happened, I would deal with it. And both of those things turned out to be true. So, getting back to the original question, can we change how we view uncertainty if it's holding us back in life? So I think yes, we can, with just a few helpful tips. And those are to notice when you're predicting doom in the future and to stop yourself. And to mix up your daily routines just a little bit, all the time, you know, if you can manage it, and also try and stay away from the news. For me, those were the most impactful things that I've done to change how I feel about uncertainty, and my life has got better and more exciting as a result. So I hope you've taken something useful from this video, but I think that's all for this time. And thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.